why do you think stories like this about, class systems and hierarchy and social political convention are really fascinating for us to watch, and we get right into them?
Well, it actually occurred to me recently that Hidden World of the Harem is rather similar to Downton Abbey, which is another Vision program, because you've got these aristocratic or royal families living in close quarters with servants, people of a different socioeconomic background, in a very similar time period. And so again, it goes to this popularity of this genre, which I actually think has to do with the world we're living in today. We're in this era of globalization, interconnectedness, immediacy, everything happens so fast, and there's definitely a nostalgia for the past. We look back to things like Downton Abbey or the characters you'll meet in Hidden World of the Harem, and we see this structured society, and I think that's what people are looking for in their lives, is structure. And so when you get to escape into a drama where human nature, is at its best, it really, I think, calls to people. I love historical dramas, and I love the genre of television, and so the opportunity to work in really a creative endeavor where I got to research a historical period that I don't really know very much about, and really learn the details of this period and the people's lives, was very appealing to me. And of course, to be able to do this with my father, with whom I'm very close, was also a major bonus.
What was special about working with your father on this project?
Well, it was great to work with my dad. David and I are very close. We're a very tight-knit family with my mother too, and we really share sort of an innate understanding of the world. We see the world very similarly, although of course with generational and gender differences. So I think that was really something that was great in collaborating with him, is that we come from a similar point of view, but with differences. So we could approach a problem in the writing process from slightly different viewpoints, but understand that we had the same end goal.
So the story itself really revolves around many things, but most importantly around the lives of two women. And what can you tell me what life was like for women at the time during the last decades of the Ottoman Empire, and why it was important to tell the story of how things changed?
Well, I think what's really interesting about looking at this time period is that it's very modern. It's very close to us, very recent history. And what was so interesting about life for women was that they were living in a centuries-old way of life. Particularly the women in the imperial harem were living in a system that had been developed 500 years before, when the conditions, the history was very different. And so we're looking at a period where you've got modernization happening around them, and yet the lives of these women are conditioned by something very historical. When you take a tour through the Dolmabahce Palace in Istanbul, which was really built as their Versailles, it was supposed to be this big opulent palace, you can see that telephones were installed. And again, it's this idea that it's not so distant from us, that this is really history that's not so far away, but because of the system of the harem, we don't really understand what was going on inside. And that's what we're trying to do with this television program, is to get you that inside look as to what life was really like. Hadijeh and Halideh Adib, our two central female characters, are very similar when you look at their inner characters. Both had a lot of strength. They followed through with their convictions, their belief in freedom and emancipation for each other, based on, this is, I think, a very interesting similarity, based on ideals that were given to them through their fathers. Their fathers raised them with these ideals of democracy and reform and rights for women. And so we see both of them challenging authority, breaking with tradition, and becoming sexually empowered. Ultimately, they both choose their husbands. They get to choose the men that they live with in the end.
Now, I understand that there's a large percentage of the Turkish population that's under 35. I think it's somewhere around 50%. Did you find that you could identify as a young adult to the fact that they're just, really learning about this part of their history?
Yes, I definitely identified with that, and I think the Turkish people that we came into contact were really excited about this project because, as you say, this is sort of new history for them. They're young and they don't really know the Ottoman history as well as the history of the Turkish Republic. And so it was great to be able to work with our production crew and the cast and everybody, because they were so excited about getting to dig into this history that they hadn't really learned in schools, or they'd known sort of the big, sultans' names that the state wanted them to know about, but not necessarily the details.
Do you find a certain sense of responsibility and weightiness to unveiling, so to speak, this part of their history for them?
Very much so. I mean, I think one of the strongest points for David and I is really to show these people's lives, because they're true stories, with integrity, and to really do it justice. And part of the burden for us is that we don't speak Turkish. And so, granted, there was a change in the language from the Ottoman language to the modern day Turkish, so most Turkish people don't actually speak the language that they would have spoken in the harem, but it still was a big burden to us, and we really wanted to be careful that we got those details right, that we were portraying the facts as they happened.
What will you look back on with the most fondness about this experience in this project?
Oh, with the most fondness, definitely the people we got to meet. The cast and crew were incredible, really gave it their heart and soul to this project. I mean, we came in as foreigners trying to tell a Turkish story, and they really embraced us. They embraced the project and what we were trying to achieve, and just made some really wonderful friendships. And hopefully, they're as proud of the work as we are.